Let's talk about a legendary American moment, George Washington masterfully crossing the Delaware. That was the definition of bold leadership against all odds. A true historical boss. Well, our subject today is the exact opposite. In this video, we're counting down the Confederate generals whose catastrophic decisions likely made Jefferson Davis question all of his life choices. Whether you're a hardcore history fan or just getting started, you're about to learn why these 5 officers definitively earned their place on this list of infamy. Make sure you watch until the finish, because I'll be asking for your help to sort these generals from merely terrible to utterly humiliating. Confederate General Gideon Pillow climbed the ranks quickly due to his political friends, not his talent. During the Battle of Belmont, he immediately made a huge mistake. He directed his soldiers into a wooded area that provided excellent concealment for the Union forces. But through pure chance, he managed to push them into a short-lived withdrawal. In the end, however, the fight concluded as a draw. The true takeaway was Pillow's unstable command. He was impulsive, uncertain, and leaned entirely on his subordinates. And at Fort Donelson, his performance was far, far more dismal. Teamed with John B. Floyd and Simon Buckner, Pillow had a chance to lead an escape before Grant's army completely surrounded the fort. A classic story of what might have been. But instead, Pillow hesitated. He commanded his men to return to their defensive positions, effectively stalling the entire operation. And Grant, being the brilliant commander he was, capitalized on the delay and compelled the fort to capitulate. Then came the famous act of cowardice. Pillow deserted his own army under the darkness of night, floating across the Cumberland River in a small skiff, forcing Buckner to handle the surrender alone. Illogically, Jefferson Davis continued to assign him posts. Wherever Pillow was assigned, calamity was sure to follow. Cocky, irresolute, and a greater threat to his own side than to the enemy, Pillow solidified his legacy as the Confederate Army's own personal disaster. Next on our list is the one and only Leonidas Polk, also known as the Fighting Bishop. To be blunt, he was better at preaching than planning. So how does a bishop end up as a Confederate general? Well, he was an Episcopalian bishop. That skill set doesn't really translate. He was also a plantation owner in Tennessee. Okay, that's probably not it either. Oh, and he was President James K. Polk's second cousin. Ah, now the pieces are fitting together. Polk had almost no practical military experience, yet Jefferson Davis gave him a high rank anyway. His fellow officers were livid, and Polk spent his career validating their anger, becoming an expert in creating disorder and wasting opportunities. At Perryville in 1862, he delayed his assault on the Union's left flank. Critical openings for a win simply vanished, and at Belmont he remained idle in Columbus while Pillow's forces were being destroyed, dispatching backup far too late to be useful. The story at Shiloh was identical. He eventually ordered an assault on the Hornet's Nest, but his tardiness almost ruined the entire mission. Is there anything this man could do correctly? Not really. He also constantly bickered with Bragg, disregarded direct commands, and annoyed everyone he worked with. During the Battle of Chickamauga, his dithering permitted Union troops to fortify their lines, wasting precious hours that could have secured a Confederate victory. Polk kept his position mainly because of Davis's favor, not his own merit. But on June 14, 1864, his ineptitude finally got him killed, torn in two by a Union cannonball. Polk's lasting impact? Overconfidence, inflexibility, and expensive errors that angered his officers and wrecked Confederate offensives. Next up, we have Theophilus Holmes, who his own soldiers called Granny. Definitely not a nickname you want. Hailing from an influential North Carolina lineage, his father had been both a governor and a congressman. So, predictably, Holmes used these family ties to gain entry to West Point, finishing 44th in a class of 46. When the Civil War started, Holmes left the U.S. Army for the Confederacy, which was likely a secret win for the Union. Robert E. Lee himself characterized him as sluggish and unassertive. Yet, in spite of this, Holmes was promoted to lieutenant general and put in charge of the Trans-Mississippi Department. There, he dealt with poorly trained local soldiers, badly supplied units, and a populace that was more focused on avoiding conscription than on fighting. His operations in Arkansas consistently failed or resulted in withdrawal. His efforts to save Vicksburg were a complete flop. By the start of 1864, exhaustion, a failing memory, and the immense challenge of managing distant posts made him resign. He never secured a significant victory. He failed to motivate his troops and frequently appeared satisfied with just keeping the army from completely falling apart. Holmes was undeniably loyal to the Confederate cause, but he was tragically incompetent for the entire duration of the war. Now let's talk about Braxton Bragg, a man whose professional life is practically a textbook on failed leadership. From the beginning, Bragg was known for fighting with almost everyone. Back in the Mexican-American War, he occasionally demonstrated some skill. But by the Civil War, his command was defined by dithering and a total lack of synergy. At Shiloh, his assault on the Hornets' Nest had potential, but it ended in a Confederate retreat. Then at Perryville, a breakdown in communication with Kirby Smith and his own reluctance threw away a limited advantage, leading to mutinous talk and formal complaints to Jefferson Davis. His professional relationships with Leonidas Polk, William J. Hardee, and John C. Breckinridge fell apart, crippling his army's morale. And as if that wasn't enough, his withdrawals from Tullahoma and Chattanooga were nothing to boast about. Even after he stepped down, he kept on arguing with other commanders. In summary, Bragg was a masterful planner if your objective was to create chaos, internal conflict, and repeated defeat. And finally, we have John Bell Hood, daring, assertive, and terrible at recognizing his limits. Hood built a name for himself by leading from the very front, throwing himself into combat like a wild man. Many of his soldiers started to wonder if they were there for honor or just to die. Hood's early war record was actually quite decent. At Gaines' Mill, he shattered the Union defensive line, but this cost over 400 casualties in his Texas brigade, while Hood emerged without a scratch. Brave? Absolutely. Sound tactical thinking? Debatable. His entire career was marked by recklessness, defiance of orders, and calamitous choices. At Chickamauga, he genuinely contributed to the victory, but he received a grave injury. Then came the Atlanta campaign, which permanently established his habit of choosing personal glory over sensible tactics. His direct charges at Peachtree Creek and Ezra Church sacrificed tens of thousands of soldiers for almost no territorial gain. And when William T. Sherman closed in on Atlanta, Hood made the decision to set the city ablaze and pull out, ultimately failing to halt the Union march. The failures continued. His Tennessee campaign showcased his ruinous military judgment. Then there was the disaster at Nashville, where George Thomas dismantled what was left of Hood's forces. The final cost was over 23,000 men lost. In the end, even Hood's personal fearlessness couldn't compensate for the bedlam he created. John Bell Hood is memorialized as a commander whose audacity frequently led to the deaths of his own troops. If you've watched all the way to this point, I truly want to thank you. You are a certified Rootvolutionary. So, how would you personally rank these 5 generals? Maybe your own list of the worst 5 is different. Let me know your opinions down in the comments. And if you have just a moment, please give this video a thumbs up and make sure you subscribe to the Rootvolutionary channel. I'll be seeing you in the next one.